Everyone, it's 5 p.m., Monday, September 13th. This is the County Caucus meeting. Calling this to order, it's a hybrid meeting, which means certain members of council are in the chambers. And those in the chambers are council members Cunningham, Howard, Lawson, Mr. Rodman, there he is, and myself. Online right now are council members Dawson, Llewellyn, McKellen, Somerville. Councilmember Hervishon is not going to be with us this evening, and we are waiting to see if Councilmember Glover is going to join us. So would you all rise for the pledge to the flag, which will be conducted by Mr. Dawson. Mr. Dawson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask a member of council to approve the caucus agenda.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion. A second, please.
Could I make add something to the agenda before we approve it?
You wish to amend the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Can we add a citizen's comment to the beginning of the caucus meeting after the approval?
Is there a second for that?
I'll second that, sir.
Mr. Llewellyn, you seconded that?
That's correct.
Okay. Motion and second. Any discussion?
What was the motion? We have a citizen's comment. What are we asking?
There's not one currently
Well,
on the
there's not a
agenda right now for
citizen's
Oh,
citizens'
I'm looking at the wrong
comment.
page. I'm sorry. Sure, I'm good with that.
Okay. This will be done without objection. Are there any objections? Okay, we will have a citizen's comment. Approval of the agenda with a citizen's comment amended to that.
So moved, sir.
Mr. Llewellyn makes the motion. A second.
So moved.
Mr. Cunningham makes the second. Any discussion? The agenda as amended will be approved without objections. Okay. Citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment for those in the audience? Come forward, sir. Please state your name. You will have 3 minutes to address council.
Yes, good evening. My name is Eddie Gugino, resident here in Beaufort County. And one of the things that we're called here today is for, I believe, for Logan's censure.
There is not going to be a censure of Mr. Cunningham.
No?
No.
All right, well, I just want to also state that many of us in the, many of the residents, constituents here, we do rely on his social media posts to gain a lot of valuable insight for meetings that we're unable to attend. I just want to voice my support behind Mr. Logan here. I'll just keep it brief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Barbara States, and I'm a resident of Beaufort County, and I'm not even on social media, but I came here just to support Mr. Cunningham because it sounds like he's being intimidated and threatened by what he's posting on social media, and there's such a thing called free speech in this country. So I think the point is totally moot. I don't know if the point is to intimidate him, but it doesn't make a lot of us happy. Thank you.
Any others? Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, we're going to review the agenda. When it comes to item number 18 on the agenda, this is going to be done in 2 parts. We will make a motion for the statement that is part of agenda item 18. Mr. Somerville, I would ask you to make that motion first, and then I would ask you to do the second part of the motion, which is to move the matter to be referred to the Natural Resources Committee. You're on mute. Go ahead. You understand?
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion about the agenda items.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm a little confused by what has transpired. Are you asking Mr. Somerville to make a motion for approval at second reading and then a motion to forward to the Natural Resources Committee for reconsideration?
That's correct. That's the
Why in
appropriate,
that order, sir? Why not? Since,
because
since
it's
the possibility of changes, that Natural Resources Committee would make the matter return to County Council for first reading. Why not send it to the Natural Resources Committee prior to second reading?
Brian, may I make a comment? This is Paul.
Please do. Well, the chairman allows it. I mean, you know.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
go
I didn't
ahead.
understand the chairman's instructions. I intend to make a motion to send it to committee, but I didn't understand the part about approving it on second reading because
No.
it's not my intention to approve it on second reading.
That's correct, but in order to do it by protocol, okay, you are jumping the gun. It is an agenda item that you need to take up, and now you're going to take an action that is different than what is on the agenda. So by doing that, you, as the maker of the motion, can then amend. Now, it's not an amendment, it is a referral to a committee. But just referring it to a committee does not follow the protocols of Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh, I get you. So just make a motion to get it on the table.
Correct,
Make a motion to remove it. Okay, not
Correct.
to vote for it on second reading,
yes.
but just to get it on the table.
Yes, we're not
Okay, I'm with you.
approving it for second reading, it's getting it on the table for a discussion.
I got you. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Any questions about the consent agenda? Or any other item on the agenda? Then the agenda will be amended. Not amended, it will be conducted in the way I've asked for. Okay, we're at the item number 6, the county member discussion. For those of you in the audience who think that this is going to be something that we're going to target an individual member, you are dead wrong. I applaud that Mr. Cunningham takes time out to inform the public on Facebook. What I have a problem with is the misinformation that is being done. And I'm going to give you specific examples of that misinformation. I do ask him to continue his posting. I think that's a wonderful thing. But when you do post, you have to be factual. And here are some of the things that you have misinformed the public on. First, on August 23rd, I announced the creation of an ad hoc committee, which by law we are allowed to do, which by our own rules and procedures the chairman can do, which I announced and put in writing what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do, and when we were going to do it, and who was on that committee. But you stated that this was a backdoor committee, which was a false statement. Second, after the meeting, you immediately posted on Facebook getting some information wrong. First, you didn't get the number of employees in the county correctly. And second, you considered teachers to be county employees, which you are a teacher. You know they're not county employees. They're Board of Education employees. Then we come to the executive committee meeting, whereby we're discussing what the ad hoc committee came up with. You indicated in that, during that meeting, that specifically Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, CDC, the FDA did not require masks. A fact check of that information by Fox News indicated that that was a viral text that was absolutely wrong. Every one of those agencies do that. Next, you stated that you are elected by a group of individuals and you are not beholden to county council. There are rules and procedures by which county members operate. We have a higher level. People take for granted when we speak, we're speaking for council.
No, they're
That's
speaking
not
for
necessarily.
us. He speaks for us.
I'm speaking now.
But he speaks for us. He
Stop.
represents us.
Please,
Elected.
Stop.
please,
Stop doing all your technicalities and get it right.
please.
So, my point is this. I applaud what you do. Just please do it correctly. If you are going to post factual information. The fact that you do not like masks is not a problem. That's your choice. We're dealing with our employees. We're one of the largest employers in Beaufort County. We have to worry about them. That's our goal, is to deal with them in that manner.
No, your
We
goal
have
is- Your goal is to represent us, sir. Your goal is to represent us. That's what you do.
are.
Your goal is to represent your constituents, just like he is. He's representing us.
You're out of order. You're out of
You're
order.
out of order.
Stop. You're out of order. You're
No,
a
I'm not.
tyrant. You're a tyrant. Go back to New York. I'm from New York. You need to go back to New York and bring your crap back to New York. I despise
Sir.
people like you. Come
Sir,
down
sir,
here and bring
I,
your crap
please,
down here.
sir, let me, I'll defend myself afterwards. Let him finish and then I'll defend. I appreciate you coming out today,
No
but
problem.
let me finish.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. What do you have to say, Mr.
Okay,
Cunningham?
so a couple things. It's not a secret that I have no problem apologizing or admitting if I'm wrong. I've gone on record doing that for the school board before, when we talked to Dr. Rodriguez and when we held that meeting. I can tell you this isn't one of those situations, so if that's what you were looking for, that's not going to happen today. Based on the email that you sent me Friday night after the agenda was already created, that I saw Saturday morning after I got off work, there's a couple of things you did accuse me of. But before we go on to that, the one thing you did get right was I got the employees wrong. If you'd continue scrolling on my open Facebook, which I do mean it is open, you can Google my name right now and go look at it. Anybody can, whether they have a Facebook or not, because it's open to the public. On the 23rd, I corrected that statement, which was shared over 20 times, hundreds of people saw it, and over 50 comments with that correction. And I attached that correction to the video as well, which you can see in the comments. So I will give you that one, and I did that. Secondly, I did not say that those locations did not require masks. I said they did not require vaccines, which is true. If you do not take the vaccine,
I
you are
said
required.
vaccines.
You said mask, and we can play it back and hear that. You did say mask. I never said anything about them requiring masks. I said them requiring vaccines, which they do not. You can opt out as long as you are willing to take a test twice a week and practice social distancing and wear a mask in those places, including people that are exempt, like the post office, because the union came out against it. Now, as for your email that was sent to me, you said that this wasn't about my social media. This wasn't about me posting, not posting. One of your statements in here says, I tend to raise this issue with your fellow council members during Monday's meeting. We're at the bottom here.
Yep.
So in the name of transparency that you complain is lacking in our decision-making, and it makes no sense for you to use a platform to which many of public and on council have no access to. That is clearly stating you do not believe that I should be able to use Facebook or an
No.
that is clearly stating I should not be able to express that if they do not have access to it. I asked county council to go to Facebook Live. You said yes at one point that would happen. It still has not happened. You say there's not able to. We just got done watching the town of Hilton Head and the town of Bluffton on Facebook Live just an hour ago. So it is possible, it can be done.
There is a difference,
I did not
Roland,
interrupt you
between-
one time, Mr. Chairman. Please let me speak just like I let you speak. And I even quieted down the crowd, please. In order to meet these obligations, this is again your email, in order to meet these obligations, we must conduct ourselves in an appropriate manner. All council members should treat each other with respect to what is right and what is wrong regarding conduct, decision-making. We must show integrity and character in decision-making. Here are some of the facts in my video that you did ignore. A group was created with not 11 of us knowing about it. That is a fact. 4 people during that meeting right off the bat said they did not know about that group. whether you have the power or not. You want to talk about trust and mutual respect. You broke that amongst us when you created that group and didn't discuss it with us. I did not know. Mr. Glover came out and said he did not know. Other council members did not know about this group. That is breaking the trust of your fellow council members. We work together, and we work together to represent all of them. That is why I'm fired up. I can debate what the group brings forward all day long, and that is fine, and we can vote, and we can agree to disagree. But to create a group, and this is a backdoor deal, and if you want to call it a closed door deal, you can use whatever term you want. But you created a group without consulting with all of us, announced it during a county council meeting without it on the agenda. That is not okay to me. You took their right away for them to publicly comment on that. And during that same time, during our county council meeting, we had over 100 people show up to a school board meeting to voice both sides of the fence. And if you watch my videos, if we're going to quote them, you can even see where every single video I tell people, if you want to come out and support me, come out and support me. If you want to come out and oppose me, come out and oppose me. I am fine either way. I can take the brunt, I could take the shots. Any given day, if I couldn't, I wouldn't have ran for this position. But to come out and say that every statement I said was wrong and that created inaccurate or inflammatory at worst, that I did not say it during a council meeting, I'm going again from your email, on Facebook rather than during meetings, is also untrue, because I addressed it immediately after you were finished speaking, and I addressed it again on Tuesday. We have it on our agenda. It's the first item on our agenda today. When your press release and in your statement, you said it wouldn't come to us until the 27th. And here we are on the 13th with it coming to us 2 weeks ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, that is breaking the trust. We wonder why we have issues in Beaufort County amongst trust of our elected officials on all different levels. That's why.
Did you also read that it said time is of the essence?
I did read that. And I also read the emails that came to us before it even passed executive meeting where it says that it would be implemented. Before we even discussed it, we had emails sent to us that said this would be implemented. We have signs out front right now that say we have things implemented, and we have not voted today. I've received emails from people at the rec centers telling them that they're going to have to start wearing masks or do different things come Monday, and it hasn't even been implemented yet. We have not voted on it. And I 100% believe the freedom for a business, a governing body, to make their own decisions. And I've made that clear. That's where I stand on it. It's not whether I agree or disagree. If we get to that point where it passes the vote that they want to put in a mask mandate and I lose that vote, I lose that vote. It upholds. But at least let that vote happen. But it's been made aware to the public that these things were already taking place. We've had emails sent to us on that. So yeah, I was completely pissed off during that meeting and during that video. And I stand by those comments. I made the correction on the employees the very next day when I went back and rewatched the video live again. But to come out and say at the end of it, after Mr. Glover spoke about how he didn't know about it, to say that you have the power and sometimes you have to do things, is the power of chairman, that's fine. But to not communicate to all of us, I believe is wrong, and to not give them the time to comment is wrong. And I meant what I said. I was voted in by Beaufort County, just like all of us were. They are the ones I work for. I will 100% say that any given day. Thank you.
Any other comments from anybody else?
Thank you.
Mr. Rodman?
Yeah, there's some confusion here. I don't know all the facts and I don't really care, but the chairman does have the unilateral right to appoint a committee when he feels that it's
Wait, you don't care?
You really don't care?
Oh, that's a good opening statement.
You really don't care?
Another tyrant. There's two of them. Let's keep adding them.
You work for the people,
And you don't care.
and you don't care.
You might as well just resign
Get
now.
that in the eye.
Both of you should resign right now.
Now.
You should go back to New York. You're bringing that crap down here. That's what I
Sir,
despise.
please, let them, we're all entitled to, just let everybody have their chance, please.
So I was saying that the chairman's role does allow him to appoint various committees when he sees a need to do that. Secondly, the chairman sets the agenda, so he can put on the agenda whatever we want to. We have the right to vote to take something off of it or to add something to it, but he does have the right to set the agenda So that's just background. I understand the angst that you all are going through. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard?
Yes, I had a question today because of your input and all your emails, which I appreciate them. And I asked our county attorneys regarding the right to appoint committees. I think I knew the answer, but I wanted to make sure. It is in the state of South Carolina, the chairman can appoint committees without going through all of council. It's done all the time in many instances. We have special committees for development agreements. We have special committees for other things. This was a single issue committee. It followed FOIA. Once it met, anyone could watch the meetings. Anyone could make comments during the meetings, and it has concluded. It was an ad hoc committee, and by right, the chairman can do that. So I disagree with the statement that it was done in a hidden atmosphere, because it's been done before in other instances for other purposes, and everything was done in accordance with the law. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, if I could, so, yeah, a second.
Mr. Fluellen?
Yeah, I think that Mr. Cunningham is correct in a lot of what he says, and I join him in my my dislike of the way you formed the committee, sir. I think a phone call or an email to the entire body asking us for input or volunteers to help man the committee would have been helpful and would have seemed a little more accepting, a little more open, a little more transparent what was actually going on. But to have it all set like you did, I really felt like I wasn't included in a very select group of people on county council. There are only 11 of us, sir. You can reach out and ask for our advice and our input anytime you want. I'd be happy to talk to you. We used to talk on phone quite a bit, but that seems to have gone by the wayside as you gained experience and comfort in your seat. But I would advise you, sir, a lot of times we all have an opinion that would be valuable. I would suggest that you listen to it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we now are going to go into executive session. I would ask for a motion from a member of council to enter into executive session.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A second, please.
I'll second the motion. Mr.
Yes, this is
What's
pursuant,
it for again, sir, please?
it's pursuant to South Carolina Code, Section 30-470, receipt of legal advice, where the advice relates to matters covered by attorney-client privilege.
Well, sometimes that's kind of a sticky wicket. Okay, sir, I'll go one more. Thank you.
Okay.
What's that in relation to?
Any further discussion? We will let you know when we come out of executive session if there is action to be taken. We will. To call the county council meeting to order. It is Monday, September 13th, 6 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting, therefore we do have members in the chambers and online. As you can see, the members in the chamber are Councilmen Cunningham, Howard, Lawson, Rodman, and myself. Online will be Council members Dawson, Flewelling, McKellen, and Somerville. Council members Hervishon and Glover are not here. Council member Glover may be late and attend a little bit later. Councilman Hervishon will not be able to attend this evening, but we do have enough members to conduct the business of council. Would you all rise for the pledge of the flag, and please remain standing. There will be an invocation by Council member Gerald Dawson. Gerald, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you, God, that you are. We thank you, God, for giving us life eternal. We thank you, God, for keeping us and allowing us to assemble here today. Thank you. We thank you for all that are assembled in council, oh Father God. We pray, oh Father God, for our single player Brenner, who's lying in the hospital, struggling for her breath. We know you, oh God, to be our healer. So we pray now for the healing of Brenner. In the blessed name of Jesus, you heal her, God, by the power of your Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, I claim her healing. And then, Father God, we pray that you would bless this council, that as we go forth in our deliberations of the matters that come before us, give us your divine guidance, and Father God, that we will make wise and prudent decisions that will be beneficial to the citizens of the county in which we serve. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask a member of council to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodman makes the motion. May I have a second, please?
I'll second, sir.
Mr. Flewelling makes the second. Motioned and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the agenda will be approved without any objections. Next is the administrator's report. Mr. Greenway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I have tonight, there will be a couple other opportunities for me to speak throughout the meeting. The only thing I have for my report tonight is to do the typical recognition of county employees. But before I start into that, I also want to recognize you, Mr. Chairman, for graduating from the Institute of Government classes, both levels 1 and 2, during August. I know that is a lot of work. I think it takes a lot of effort in order to achieve both of those levels. So I want to commend you for the job that you do as chairman. One of the fortunate things about me and my role is that I get the pleasure of serving with all 11 council members that are dedicated to their jobs and to their districts at a very high level, and I'm greatly appreciative of that, and I'm thankful for that every day as I come to work. So I want to commend you, and I want to thank all the other council members for your service to the county. So having said that, congratulations again. Our first employee tonight is in our Veterans Affairs office. This is going to be kind of a dual presentation between me and the Veterans Affairs Director. The employee's name is Walter Field. He is a veteran service officer. He has served with us for 4 years. He assists Beaufort County veterans or their spouses and children as they file for benefits with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. He has 22 years of service and is a retired U.S. Marine. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Healthcare Administration, an MS in Management. He has worked 13 years as a police officer in Columbia before he came to us. I'm going to ask the Veterans Affairs Director to come on up now and to finish this off for me, and then I'll do the next 3 employees.
Thank you, Eric. County Council. Thank you for the opportunity just to flesh out a little bit more about my employee, Walter Field. Walter's a very humble man. He's very much a family man, and he loves working with veterans. In his career in the military, he was a drill instructor, among other things. But he has a certain empathy for the veterans that come through our office every day because he can relate to them. Having gone through the veterans' medical process to become 100% permanent and total himself, he can direct, he can empathize. Being a combat veteran, they open up to him. Without Walt working with me in that office, and we are a small office, you don't see us too often because by the end of the day we're spent. And but we work hard for the 35,000 veterans that we have in Beaufort County. So I just wanted to let you know that this employee is going to do everything he can for the veterans of Beaufort County up until the day that his progressive disease will not allow him to work anymore. Thank you for your time.
Our next employee has a fairly famous name, Vera Bradley, with the library at our St. Helena branch. A lot of my money having a daughter has gone to Vera Bradley down through the years, but probably not the same one. So anyway, she is a library specialist in the Youth Services Division of the library. She has been with us an astounding 29 years of service. She has worked at the St. Helena branch library from the time it first opened in the St. Helena Elementary School in 1993. She currently serves as the library specialist supervising the youth services area of the St. Helena Branch Library. Her job duties include selecting books and movies to add to the collection, presenting story times, book clubs, and crowd programs. She also visits area preschools and schools to inspire children of all ages to read. Every July, her Girls Fun Day event at the St. Helena Library draws a crowd, while her annual holiday gingerbread house program has become a December tradition for families at the St. Helena Branch Library. Something unique about her, it's a very unique statement. What makes me unique is that I'm the only me. No one else can be me. And Ms. Bradley, I want to thank you for your service to the county and to the library system for all those many years. Let's give her a round of applause.
He's right here behind me.
Oh, are you?
I might, and I don't declare that I will.
Well, come on up here, you want to say a few words to them?
I'd like to add that I taught in Beaufort County School District for 37 years.
Okay, well, come on up here and say a few words to them.
And I'd like to say that it has been a pleasure working for the Beaufort County Library. Like I said, I started in 1993. Along with that job, I had a job teaching for the Beaufort County School District, and I managed both. And the only reason I managed both was because I have a love for children. I will give my heart to children. So please and thank you for allowing me to work with our children in any capacity that I may. I'm also hearing officer certified, and I'm an advocate for children. So that is where God has placed me, and that is where I think I belong. Thank you.
There you go. Good job, thank you. This is our code enforcement officer, Tracy Goucher. She is an officer in our code enforcement division. She has been with us 20 years. Tracy monitors and enforces compliance with the Community Development Code and Beaufort County Codes of Ordinances, which govern zoning, business license, trash and litter control, junk vehicles, a multitude of stuff on a daily basis. These folks, I will tell you, in my past direct supervision of code enforcement divisions, they have the distinction of either doing too much or too little at the same time, depending on who's making the call to their supervisor. So if it's the violator that has the issue, they're moving too fast. If it's the person that is complaining, they're moving too slow. So they have to walk a fine line. Tracy patrols all areas of unincorporated Beaufort County to ensure that Beaufort County continues to stay beautiful in every way. She does a great job at educating our citizens about our ordinances and strives to make sure those ordinances are being followed. She is always willing to assist the public and other county employees when needed. She is currently enrolled in the Leadership Beaufort class of 2022. She enjoys competing in shooting competitions, so that might be handy. I don't want to ever make you mad. And she is also an amateur race car driver, so she can shoot and drive fast at the same time. So that's a great thing. So do you want to say anything?
I would just like to say that it is an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Beaufort County.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the most unique people and greatest people that I've had the pleasure of working directly with as planning and zoning director is Ms. Yoka Bowling. She works in our building inspections division. She's a floodplain and permit coordinator. She's been with us for 3 years and 10 months. We're not that far apart. All right. She's a very valuable member of the building codes team. Her duties include processing building, mechanical, and mobile home permits, as well as assisting customers by answering permitting, licensing, and flood zone related questions on a daily basis. She identifies and determines flood zones on FEMA flood maps and is currently working on becoming certified as a floodplain manager. It's a very difficult test. So once you achieve that, and you will achieve it, once you do achieve it, that will be quite an honor for you. Additional duties include processing payroll for the Building Codes Department, preparing expenditure reports, creating monthly permitting reports to send to the assessor's office, and registering manufactured homes within Beaufort County. I don't think people quite understand what all it takes to deliver services here in Beaufort County and how all the departments are interrelated, but that is a key component. So we have to have a lot of folks that are capable of doing a lot of different things throughout the day. So something unique is that she loves making diamond art, cooking, baking, and spending time with her family. So thank you very much for your service. You want to say a few words?
Sure. It is a pleasure and an honor to be recognized as a good employee. I'm a very outgoing person. I love people. If I can do anything to help anybody, I will go above and beyond to help anybody in any way that I can. I just want to thank everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We have two proclamations this evening. The first proclamation will be presented to the County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Department because it's a Drug Abuse Recovery Month. It's going to be presented by Councilmember Larry McKellen, who will read the proclamation. Mr. McKellen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
This is a proclamation resolving that Beaufort County Council will proclaim September as Recovery Month in Beaufort County. Whereas behavioral health is an essential part of one's overall health and recovery, is a process in which people are able to improve their overall wellness, both physically and emotionally, live increasingly self-directed lives, and strive to fulfill their greatest potential. Whereas substance use disorders, including opioid use disorder and co-occurring disorders, affect all communities nationwide, but with commitment and support, people with these disorders can seek help and treatment, recover, and achieve healthy lifestyles and lead rewarding lives in recovery. And whereas the focus of National Recovery Month is to combat stigma and to resolve misconceptions associated with addiction, to celebrate their journey with the theme, join the voices for recovery, celebrating connections. Recovery Month spreads the message that prevention and treatment are effective and people can and do recover every day. And whereas repackaged substance use disorders and co-occurring disorders is apparent locally with an estimated 20,000 people in Beaufort County affected by these conditions, through National Recovery Month, most people become more aware and able to recognize the signs of substance use disorders, as people in need of treatment and recovery services are encouraged to seek help. Whereas the National Recovery Month observance seeks to improve the lives of those affected by substance use disorders by raising awareness of these disorders and educating communities about the effective treatment and recovery services that are available. For the above reason, the Beaufort County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Department is asking our entire community to join partners and stakeholders across the Palmetto State in celebrating September as National Recovery Month. And in observation of the 32nd anniversary of Recovery Month, now therefore be it resolved that Beaufort County Council does hereby proclaim September 2021 as Recovery Month in Beaufort County, dated this 13th day of September, signed by the Councilman Chairman of Beaufort County Council.
Thank you very much on behalf of the Beaufort Alcohol and Drug Abuse Department. Do it.
Congratulations. Our next proclamation is to honor Grace Dennis for her years of service on the Beaufort County Disability and Special Needs Board, and that will be presented by Council Member Alice Howard.
She's not here. I don't know if she's online.
She is online, and Mr. Glover is now online.
Okay, York asked me to do this because I was here live. This board, all of our boards and volunteers are very special to us, but our DSN board, they deal with the people who need us the most and who have no other resources often. And Miss Grace Dennis has been part of that for a very long time. Whereas Grace Dennis has served as a member of the Beaufort County Disability and Special Needs Board from June 1986 to August 2021, and whereas Ms. Dennis also served as a member of the Beaufort County Mental Rehabilitation Board until June of 1990, and whereas Ms. Dennis willingly sacrificed many evenings to faithfully serve the public, to provide assistance and advice to the Beaufort County Disabilities and Special Needs Department staff concerning the matters of policy. And whereas Ms. Dennis promoted community awareness of the Beaufort County Disabilities and Special Needs Department programs and services, and whereas Ms. Dennis never shied away from offering her input on matters coming before the board and always voted conscientiously. And whereas Ms. Dennis advocates for individuals with disabilities and special needs who are served by the Beaufort County Disabilities and Special Needs Department. Now therefore be it resolved, when Beaufort County Council recognizes Ms. Grace Dennis's vital role and dedication to Beaufort County by making it a better place to live, work, and play for individuals individuals with disabilities, dated the 13th day of September, signed Joseph Assman, Chairman, Beaufort County Council. And I'd like to add that we have the best DSN in the state. And she is a great part of that. We really appreciate your time.
We were at the citizens, I'm sorry.
Mr. Glover wanted to say something?
Mr. Glover, did you say you wanted to say something?
No, I just wanted, I guess I could just echo what Alice just said. She represented me well. That Grace really truly represent special needs and disability in Beaufort County for many, many years. And we were great to have her as part of that program. So to her and to Alice for stepping in for me, I say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now we are at the citizen comment portion. Every member of the public who is recognized to speak shall limit their comments to 3 minutes and follow the protocols. You are going to address the chair in speaking. Confine yourselves to questions under the jurisdiction of council and be mindful and respectful to all who are in the room or on television. One of the things that I understand you are here about is whether or not the COVID ad hoc committee was legally permissible. Many of you claim that this was done in violation of state law. That is absolutely false. State statute that we are governed by is the Carolina Code of Laws, Section 4-9-1110. It provides the following. Council shall elect a chairman and vice chairman, appoint a clerk, meet at least once a month, conduct meetings in accordance with general law of the state, and determine its own rules and order of business, which is the creation of a document called our Rules and Procedures. The statute does not attempt to dictate how council goes about establishing its committees, subcommittees, or ad hoc committees. There are 2 specific Attorney General opinions that support that. One in 1985 that said the power of a county council is plenary, meaning without limitation and absolute in this regard. The second one was in 2017, reaffirming the ability of council to determine its own rules and business. In Beaufort County, the chairman of the council and the chairman of committees have historically established ad hoc committees, standing committees, and subcommittees. This has been a long-standing and well-established procedure. I followed those rules in establishing the ad hoc committee. It was announced at a meeting. It was specified who was going to be on the committee. It was specified what their role was and how they would report back to council. So if you are here to say that was done behind closed doors, that is inaccurate. It's been done. They had 2 meetings online. Mr. McKellen was the chair of that committee, and when we get to that particular item, he will address those particular issues. Any questions? We have 15 minutes, so be mindful of your time. The first person I will call to address council is either Mary Ann Rawlings or Wendy Wilson to talk about a consent agenda item about Fort Fremont. Are they here? Please step forward.
Hello, I'm Marion Rawlings and I live on Ladies Island. I'm a board member of the Friends of Fort Fremont and one of the original master naturalists who helped organize Fort Fremont. Along with the rest of the board of Fort Fremont, we urge you to name the Fort Fremont History Center in memory of Pete Richards. There was a time in Beaufort that Fort Fremont was thought to be insignificant. Pete Richards changed all of that. He started and inspired the Friends of Fort Fremont to dig into the history of the fort, and the Friends found a number of things, including that Fort Fremont was very important. It represents the end of 350 years of forts protecting Port Royal Sound. It was part of the national fortifications providing homeland defense at the turn of the 20th century. It was operating at the dawn of the Coast Artillery, and it was in operation and providing coastal defense at the start of the U.S. Blue Water Navy era. Pete Richards was a decorated Navy veteran of the Vietnam War. He operated as an intelligence officer on a patrol boat along the Mekong Delta, and he participated in over 135 river patrols. He recently died as a result of his exposure to Agent Orange in that war. Earl Peter Richards was a community activist who worked to make this community a better place for citizens and visitors. He saw the potential at Fort Fremont even when Beaufort County wanted to install a 20-foot chain link fence around the batteries to keep people away. He founded the Friends of Fort Fremont to work with the county to make this property a significant relic and a tourist magnet. He saw the need for a history center to help educate the residents and tourists to the significance of Beaufort and Fort Fremont in American history. His creation of Friends of Fort Fremont was intended to preserve and promote the educational, historical, natural, and cultural resources of the Fort Fremont Preserve. Previous county employees who worked with Pete, like Billy Lindsay, Ian Hill, and Gary Kubik, recognized firsthand the contributions of Pete to this effort. The History Center at Fort Fremont should be dedicated to the memory of Earl Peter Richards. Pete Richards brought Fort Fremont back from the ashes of a ruin. Fort Fremont was brought to life by Pete Richards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person will be trying to get those people that I know have questions about council agenda items. Mr. Crescitello.
Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council, I'm here to say something which is probably goes without saying. The word promptly is not slower than normal speed. Promptly is not slower than normal speed. I sent a letter to every member of County Council on August the 5th, advising the members of the County Council about what the rules are, the laws are of Beaufort County in regard to zoning matters. I appeared before the Planning Commission with a recommendation. They agreed with the recommendation and forwarded it to the county government. That has not yet happened. It says in the law, the Planning Commission is an advisory body and that it shall take action as promptly as possible in consideration of the interests of the applicant. I am the applicant. The council is a decision-making body and it shall take action as promptly as possible in consideration of the interests of the applicant. I am the applicant. I paid for an opportunity to appear before the Planning Commission and get an answer from the county government. That has not yet happened. The Planning Commission met in June. Here we are in September. Promptly is not slower than normal speed. The Planning Commission met. It recommended to the Natural Resources Committee, and the Natural Resources Committee has not yet been impaneled to hear my presentation. I understand that the County Council will take up an action item today in regard to one of the things that I brought up in the presentation to the Planning Commission, namely Fort Benton Plantation and an Environmental Education Center. It was part of the development agreement that was adopted in 2012. It said, it is our plan, county government, to build an environmental education center. You didn't do it. So I asked, why not? In the development agreement, it says that where an action is to be taken to modify the development agreement, it shall be done in front of a court of competent jurisdiction. That's a step that has not yet happened. And yet you have something on the agenda tonight to do something that steps in the way of that. So I'm telling you, County Council, this is not a good picture at all. You have not followed the regulations that you set forth, and I have been denied my rights as a citizen to receive an action by the county government. You have not heard me. I've spoken to you twice before. I went in 3 minutes. That's a total of 9 minutes. I've told you the same thing over and over again, and yet it has not yet happened. I protest.
Yep. Okay, Lisa Laking. You're here to talk about the agenda item on the COVID committee?
Yeah, I actually want to take a minute before I get to that part and remind you all of a very popular president at one time, not maybe with everybody in this room necessarily, but Barack Obama, and his usage of social media, including podcasting, Twitter, MySpace, Facebook, and YouTube, has been compared to the adoption of radio, television, MTV, and the internet in slingshotting his presidential campaign and success, and as such elicited much scholarly inquiry. Obama's usage of the wider internet has often since been compared to Franklin D. Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy's adoption of radio and television media, respectively, in the history of communication between the White House and the American public. So I'm telling you today that if Barack Obama can do it at the White House, Logan Cunningham can do it down here in Beaufort County, and it's perfectly appropriate and acceptable in 2021 to be using those media. With regards to this COVID committee and their rules and regulations, this is actually, it's a quote from an article, but it's directed at the people who will be affected by these rules and regulations you try to go forward with. This is a war about the role of government. It is about your freedom to think, speak, and to ask questions, and about whether your individual autonomy is downgraded to a conditional privilege or whether it remains a right. It is a war about whether you are to remain a citizen or become a subject. It is about who owns you, you or the state, and in this case, the county. We have bodily sovereignty, bodily autonomy, and sovereignty. You guys aren't our doctors, and you aren't our rulers or our parents. So I hope that everyone who gets affected by any of these rules you try to put on stands up for their own freedoms and their own medical right to freedom. Thank you.
Don Timms.
I'm here, and I'll let that pass.
Okay, thank you. Scott Anderson.
Hello and good evening. First of all, I will indicate that I am against any mandates, whether it be vaccination or mask, as well as the state of South Carolina is largely against being forced to do things. This is a conservative state at nearly all levels, and people have chosen to come to this state because of the freedoms that are provided in this state. Don't take those away. This county is growing as people are moving from states of suppression. Again, don't be blind as to how those states are being ruined. This is a beautiful state, and we wish to protect it. As for the Facebook issue, many on here don't read the newspaper, and that's simply a choice. It's also a choice as to whether somebody logs on a free and available social media site. So what Logan Cunningham has done is absolutely current. You mentioned that this is a legal issue. If it's legal, and that's still to maybe be understood, it still doesn't pass the smell test. Doesn't pass the smell test. So if you can live with that, realize that you are going against what others in this state, county, wish for. The fish is rotting from the head down. This county is divided. This room is divided en masse. I look and see plenty of county employees here without a mask on. That's a choice that they're making. That's a personal choice. If you wish to wear a mask, which is proven to be ineffective, then that's your choice. However, we're going to demand that we have our choice not to wear a mask. The majority is watching the minority. The majority is watching the minority, and will vote accordingly. Thank you.
Henry Mice?
Mr. Chairman, Council, I have always been one to err on the side of liberty. This ordinance will go against liberty as enumerated in the Constitution, which I thought was, our guiding document. And it should be my choice or anybody else's choice to wear a mask, get the shot. There is no science behind it that's reliable. I mean, you get all kind of conflicting reports and you don't know which one to believe. But I'm just taking a stand and letting y'all know where I stand, and I'll do everything in my power to make changes on council if it passes. Thank you.
Edwin Gugino?
Yes, good evening. On that issue of masks with everyone, my professional, what I do is I'm a risk management framework. I deal with controls and those likes. Not specifically infection control, but I still understand the importance and the use of compensating controls and how they can, generally help. One of the most important things with mask wearing, if you believe the masks are going to help you, is the proper hand hygiene procedures that look around, nobody follows. Nobody does it, nobody does it. You know what I mean? So, the CDC guidance will tell you right there, anytime you touch your mask, you're supposed to discard it, get a new one. Hand hygiene, nobody does that. What are you wearing it for? So, that's all I have to say on that. And, it should be up to the individual, vaccines and masks. Thank you.
Cheryl Norris?
Hi. I'm actually here in support of Logan today. It's my understanding that he made some comments or videos on Facebook that other members of the council are not privy to because they're not on Facebook. Personally, I'm not on Facebook either. I find Facebook to be a communist-controlled entity that censors a lot of conservative points of view. I think it's pretty astonishing that Logan is able to say what he wants to say on Facebook. I completely support his freedom of speech. I'm coming from Hilton Head. He's not even in my district, but I am a big fan of his right to express the Constitution of our United States and our freedom of choice, whether it be to wear a mask, get a shot, say what we need to say. This is what separates us from the rest of the countries in the world. We value our freedom, we value our God, and we value our country. And thank you, Logan, for your service. We support you to continue to fight for America and fight for our county. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, we have reached our first 15 minutes of citizen comments. Citizens will be able to comment at the end of the meeting. We're going to move on to item number 9. We were in executive session. There will be no action to be taken after what happened in executive session. We were privy to attorney-client privilege. Our attorneys have advised us of the direction that they need to take, and we're going to allow them to move in that particular direction. Item number 10 is our liaison and committee reports. Who would like to go first? Mr. McKellen, do you want to do your community services first?
I do. Yeah, thanks. I have a report out of the Community Services Committee, and it has to do with an item on the consent agenda tonight, and it's a resolution to appropriate $398,000 from the Community Services Grants Program as provided in the fiscal year 22 budget. It's recommended by the Human Services Alliance, the initiative of the Beaufort County Human Services Department. That consent agenda item deals with an annual program that we have here in the county where we receive applications from nonprofits who are doing work in our community, and they apply for funds to assist them in the work that they do to support people in the community who are in need. This is a program that has been in force for more than a decade here in the county, and it always comes in over the summer, and the applications are forwarded to the Human Services Alliance Committee. That committee makes a determination on who should receive the awards and how much they should receive of the amount we have available, which this year was $398,000. We have this year approximately 30 Beaufort County nonprofits who have received the awards totaling $398,000, and that money will be distributed to them after this matter is approved. Once the money is distributed, the nonprofits file a report on what they have done with that money and how closely they have aligned themselves with the goals that they stated in their application process. So tonight, when we approve the consent agenda, we will be approving a resolution to appropriate $398,000 from the Community Services Grant Program to send that money to these worthy nonprofits that are operating within the community, serving people who are in need. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Somerville, do you wish to comment about the executive committee items?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The executive committee has 3 reappointments to bring forward. The first one is Sarah Marshall, who's the Director of Community Services, Beaufort, Jasper EOC, or Low Country Workforce Board. Second is Stephen Murray as a reappointment to the Beaufort County Economic Development Commission. And thirdly is Richard Gow, again, a reappointment to the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation.
Thank you. Ms. Howard.
Yes, sir. As so well articulated by the Friends of Fort Fremont earlier during public comment at Natural Resource Committee, we voted to forward naming the Interpretive Center the Fort Fremont History Center in memory of Richards. And so that was one of the actions we took. And also I would like to mention, I attended the Town of Port Royal's town meeting on the 8th of September, and they have rezoned the Mobley tract from T3 neighborhood to T1 Natural Preserve, which will become part of the Port Royal Sound Foundation preservation area. And they are also going to host December 10th through 12th a Christmas Village with a Saturday night concert and sponsors, and it should be a good event. Music from the Manger is the title of that event in the town of Port Royal. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other reports?
Yes, from the Finance Committee, I would like to congratulate Mr. Raymond Hayes Williams as our new CFO, or Chief Financial Officer. He has been with us for a year and well-deserved, and I'm glad we made that decision, Eric. He's going to serve us well. We're already starting to work on our fiscal year 23 budget. So again, that's something we're moving forward with right now. Our next Finance Committee meeting is the 20th, scheduled currently for 2 o'clock.
Thank you. Mr. Rodman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we also have a Public Facilities Committee next Monday. We have 6 objectives for the year. I think the staff is making good progress on them. 3 of them fall in the area of capital plans, or investments, if you will, pure capital, our roads, and our facilities. What I'm hoping happens as the year comes to a conclusion is that we've then gone the final step of putting in place what the financing would look like for those particular items, particularly focused on the next, let's say, 3 years, probably on a rolling basis of what we ought to do. We'll also be probably taking up the proposal for the new terminal for the Hilton Head Airport, and it certainly has outgrown the one that we have. We anticipate, not at this meeting, but in October, probably coming back and looking at our facilities plan. There was 2 workshops that took place a couple of weeks ago to look at a large body of work that had been done as to what the county's need will be for over a, 20, 30-year period in terms of best uses of facilities. And probably what we're thinking will come out of that discussion is at some point an adoption of that plan as a good catalog of the things that we need to be seriously thinking about, maybe some prioritization of which ones that we need to do first, and maybe looking at the consultant tweaking his report if the council wants to see some different versions of what they've put together. Lastly, there's an intersection of Buckwalder and the northern part of the Bluffton Parkway, years ago, that was realigned at the request of Bluffton. There's money set aside in the impact fees to do that. The staff has advanced the engineering to the point that not the main alignment is impacted, but as you look at some of the smaller intersections on either side, there's a couple different options, actually 4. And so there'll be a discussion between the county and the town of Bluffton tomorrow night at their meeting, see if we can zero in on what their recommendation is for those, so we can get on with the final design and building of that particular intersection. And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, please.
Mr. Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to report to County Council that I successfully completed my year as chairman of the Low Country Council of Governments, and the new chairman has been installed, Mr. John Carroll, who's town councilman with the town of Hardyville. And I'd like to thank the county for their support during my year. I really appreciate it. It was a very successful year, despite COVID impacts throughout the entire region. I had only one opportunity to hold the actual gavel of my office. That was the night of the meeting that we installed the new chairman. So at least I held it once, but I appreciate all of the support that we had. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Seeing none, we're now going to move to the approval of the consent agenda. Would a member of council offer? Councilwoman Howard makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Rodman makes the second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the consent agenda will be approved without objection. The next item on our list is item number 12. Mr. McKellen, since you were the chair of this committee, I would ask you to make the motion to adopt the recommendations of the COVID-19 ad hoc committee.
Okay, before I do that.
No, wait, we need a second. I'm asking you to make the motion.
I didn't make the motion.
Yes, I'm asking you to make the motion. And then you can make
I'll be
comments.
ready to make the motion in just 1 minute. If you're in agreement with that.
Say that again.
I will be ready to make that motion in 1 minute if you are in agreement with that. I would like to make a introduction to the motion.
Once the motion is made, then you can make the introduction, not before. So you're the maker of the motion. A second, please.
I'll second this as well.
Mr. Glover makes the second. Okay, you made the motion, you get to speak first. Go ahead, Mr. McCollum.
Thank you. I chaired the ad hoc committee consisting of council members Howard, Lawson, and Glover, and executive staff members Marshall, Kevin, and Grant. We reviewed and developed a list of recommendations for the county administrator to consider for response to the COVID-19 virus that is spiking in the community, and we submitted recommendations. The goal of the ad hoc committee was to establish clear internal protocols to safeguard health and safety of Beaufort County employees and the users of Beaufort County facilities. It was not a goal of the ad hoc committee to create a countywide mask or vaccine mandate. It was not a goal to make vaccination a requirement of employment, and it was not a goal to establish policy in the Board of Education or the school district. It was a goal, among other things, to decide whether masks should be required in Beaufort County buildings and facilities, what types of hygienic and sanitary efforts will continue or be newly implemented, whether offices stay open or operate with skeleton crews, or if offices close, employees would work from home. What role would COVID leave and quarantine have in considering office operations? Whether COVID leave would be continued, COVID leave is discontinued, would there be exceptions? There were a great many things that came up in our discussions over 2 days. We did file some recommendations for the county administrator to consider. We did not anticipate passing an ordinance in that regard, but rather simply making recommendations to ensure the health and safety of our employees and people who use our buildings. So we recommended consideration with regard to building and facilities safety protocols. We recommended a review of safety procedures to make sure they were up to date. Recommended consideration and accommodation of employees who wished to receive the vaccine. And then we discussed recommendations with regard to extending COVID leave to our employees through the end of the year, so those who are affected by the virus would not have to take sick or vacation time to deal with this. If they contracted the virus, someone in their family did, or if they had to take care of someone in their family who did. So those recommendations have been presented to the county administrator and to this body as well. And I think that I would like to allow you to then develop a discussion with regard to these matters and also obtain some information with regard to the position of the county administrator, so that the motion that I made will allow us to adopt the recommendations of the committee and move them forward to the county administrator for his consideration and adoption or implementation as he believes appropriate, and that the county council chair instruct all boards and commissions and the county council to adhere to those implemented measures for 90 days from the effective date of September 14th, 2021.
Thank you. Mr. Glover, you made the second, therefore you get to comment next.
Mr. Chairman, I first want to just say that I appreciate the opportunity to serve on the committee. Unlike the chairman, he was very focused on his task that you set out for him to do. So I commend him for that. I really wish that the recommendation was going a little further, but it does offer support for our staff. And I think that's, as a council member, that is dear to my heart, that we need to do all we can to support our staff and be concerned about their welfare and their being, and that it allows the flexibility for the administrator to show compassion, particularly for family members who may have young ones under 12 years old going to school who may end up with the virus, and that parent, even though they are vaccinated, have to provide some type of child care for that child. So it allows a little flexibility, but the main purpose of this recommendation is to make an attempt to keep our employees safe. For that, thank you.
Mr. Lawson, you were a member of the committee. Do you wish to comment?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I was a member of the committee. I was asked to do that, and I did so. At first, I said no, but then I willingly did it, realizing that it was going to have some impact. However, I'd like to make 2 points, if I could. One is, and I stated this at the committee meeting, that I think this is something that should be decided by our county administrator. And our HR staff is the one who should make this decision, and that's actually who needs to make the decision. We can make the recommendation that we're making today. However, it is ultimately Mr. Greenway's decision of how he handles county employees, county buildings, and what he does inside those to protect our staff. The second point that I'd like to make is the fact that I am pro-vaccine. I've been vaccinated. I am pro-mask when asked to wear a mask. However, what I tell people is the fact, and I'm actually going to vote against this just because there are a few things in here that I disagreed with. Most of these things, when you read this, it is all very common sense of things and how you would protect your employees. The one thing with the mask that I mentioned during the meeting was the fact that we do not have the right to tell someone that they cannot wear a mask. And I'm going to say that again because everyone says, what did you say? We do not have the right to tell someone they cannot wear a mask. So how does that give us the right to tell them that they need to wear a mask? And I say that, I've been through the CDC website, and again, trying to read everything. I've read all the other articles. I'll finish up, make this quick, is the last thing is if your science tells you to wear a mask, I want you to wear that mask, but please wear an N95 mask. An N95 mask is what will protect you. It will protect you up to 95 to 99%. If you wear that mask, it's going to protect you from the person that's next to you. It will protect you from giving it to somebody. So again, if you wear that N95 mask, it doesn't matter what everyone else does. And the last point that I'd like to say is that as we go through this, that we all can respect each other, that if you want to wear a mask, great. Don't attack the person that doesn't. And if you don't want to wear a mask, and to respect the person's social distancing and stay away. So again, these are all things that as I mentioned, all common sense, but because of just the one or two things that I voiced my opinion on, I will vote against it. Not that I don't agree with some of the things in here, but again, I think it goes back to Mr. Greenway being the one to make the decision.
Ms. Howard, you were on the committee.
Yes, this committee was enlightening to me, with especially having our Scott Marshall, our human resources, and Colonel Quandra from our detention center and our legal advice from Tom Kevaney. It brought up a lot of things that one person wouldn't think about. I think it was a good collaboration of the committee. I don't necessarily agree with all the recommendations, but again, these are just recommendations. It is the administrator's decision. And I think it's a good list of recommendations. Whether I agree with all of them or not, I will vote for this. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
So there's a couple issues I have with the recommendations. I will say ahead of time, I will automatically remove any bias from the way this group was created, because you have to treat them as two different individuals. The recommendations are one thing, the way the group was created was another. So in no way does the way this was created affect my decision making on this. I just want that to be known. I've talked to multiple people, and that's the way this needs to be handled. With that being said, If you notice on these recommendations, there is nothing on here about the vaccine, which is great. That is a win, because I believe none of us are doctors. None of us should have any influence on that decision somebody makes, because it's our own personal decision. But the reason you see me get fired up, or other people on county council get fired up about it, is because at one point it was on there. This group also, if you go back to August 9th, an email was sent out to our employees that if they didn't have proof of vaccination status, they were in jeopardy of losing COVID leave if they tested positive. Thankfully, that was recited. That was taken away, and that was in the paper. That is public knowledge. 2 weeks later, this group was created. That's where the red flags start with me. I don't think it's a coincidence that this committee was created after that movement or whatever decision was eventually reversed. I am happy to say that Mark Lawson was on that group to stand up for some of those things on there. He's the only one that actually communicated to me about some of the things going on. Now, with that, I will say, it's not about, to me, pro-mask, anti-mask, pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine. I'll tell you, a lot of my family have gotten the vaccine. Me and my dad butt heads all the time about the mask because he's pro-mask, I'm not. He says the same thing about Mark, though. It's got to be the right mask. It's got to be worn properly. And my dad's been a doctor for over 45 years now. 35 years, sorry. With that being said, it goes down to exactly what Mark Lawson said. If I was to walk into this room right now and say, you are not allowed to have the vaccine, or you are not allowed to wear a mask, people would be upset. And rightfully so, because I'm taking away their right to make that decision. I refuse to take away people's rights to make that decision. We're a year and a half into this. We have given out the information. You can walk into a Walmart right now and get a vaccine if you want. You can walk into a Walmart and get masks. You can make that decision your own. I believe every business should be able to make their own decision of what they want to do. I can tell you I will not support any mandate of 100 employees being able to require vaccination. That's absolutely ridiculous, and that's an overreach. A year and a half ago, we all sat here or in public and we thanked our nurses, we thanked our doctors, our first responders, our police, our fire, EMS, and called them heroes day in and day out. And now you have a lot of them being fired because they refuse to conform to some requirements of their job. It's tough for me to sit here and say that I'm willing to restrict somebody that was willing to lay down their life a year and a half ago when we knew nothing at all. We had grocery stores still open and those people risking their lives. And now you have grocery stores pushing different ordinances. Listen, if they're willing to go out there and work without the vaccine ahead of time, then they should have the right to make their own decision. They have earned that. Our county employees have earned that right. Our county employees that worked in this building while we held meetings online, they were still here day in and day out, making sure that nothing skipped a beat. Just because offices were closed doesn't mean our employees weren't here working. They've earned that right to make their own decision. If they need the opportunity to go get the vaccine because they want it, that's fine. That is your decision. You will never see me stand up here and say I have been vaccinated or I have not been vaccinated, because it's my own personal decision. But I do believe our employees have earned the right to make their own decisions. I believe that we should also be reaching out to our employees and asking them what they want. From some of the things that I've heard is a lot of these employees don't want a police mask inside the buildings. They don't want that responsibility, and that's putting more added stress onto them. I believe it should be optional. I will 100% vote against that because there's something on there about masks. I am all for sanitation stations, making sure if you're sick, stay home. Be smart about your decisions, but the thing is, you make those decisions. I will 100% vote this down. Our EMS and our first responders can make their own decisions. And we have the gentleman in the back of the room right now that have been risking their lives every single day. And I'm going to continue to support them to make their own decisions. So I hope we vote this down. I think we're all adults enough to make that decision. And as Mr. Lawson said, we should not judge anybody else based on their decision. That is their decision. You're free to that.
Mr. Fluent.
Thank you.
Mr. Fluellen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I take all your arguments to heart. It seems like the only thing in this list that is really controversial is the requirement for masks. All the statements regarding vaccines are encouraging people to do it, which I think all of us do if it's appropriate for you in consultation with your medical professionals. If they suggest to you that you get a vaccine, we want to be supportive of that. And the same thing goes if your medical professionals would advise you to not to do it. We want to support that decision as well. So, Mr. Chairman, since the only thing that really seems to be controversial to me is the requirement that the administrator consider the use of masks by employees and visitors, I'd like to remove that. And so I make the motion, sir, that under the words consider, we remove the words use of masks by employees / visitors. And that's the end of my motion, sir.
I'll second that.
Motion and second to remove masks from the recommendations. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, rather than just totally remove it, would it make sense to bifurcate it so that we vote on everything except the mask provision, and then we consider that one separately? I think it might move things forward a little smoother.
I think my motion bifurcates the question, sir. The ordinance as a whole has already been made a motion and appropriately seconded. So the only thing that my motion does is amend it to remove that particular item. If the motion is successful, I intend to vote for the whole thing.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Thank you.
Can I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. McCollum.
People keep talking about an ordinance. I don't think this is, we're proposing an ordinance here, are we? This is a.
Did I say ordinance, sir?
A lot of people have said it, and I think a lot of people are under the mistaken impression we're trying to pass an ordinance here, and we aren't, quite frankly. It's never been about vaccine as a requirement at the moment. It's never been trying to establish policy for the school district, but it was about creating a mandate for use in our buildings for masks. So you're correct about that. But this is simply a resolution to pass the recommendations on to the county administrator so that he and his staff can decide what they would like to implement to keep our employees safe and ensure the health and safety of them and their families and people who visit our buildings.
Right.
This has nothing to do with a mask mandate for the larger county or vaccine mandates for anyone under any circumstance. So I just want to be sure we're very clear on that.
I'd like to be clear, so that I never said that or never intimated that this was a requirement for a mask for the larger part of the county. And that I don't believe I said it was for an ordinance. It was a motion, sir. And the recommendation that I'm asking everybody is to remove the word use of masks by employees and visitors under the words consider. I think everything else makes a significant amount of sense, and I think we should encourage sanitary hygiene practices. And quite frankly, if the administrator ever gets to a point where he would require or would need to consider requiring masks of employees and visitors, that he'll approach county council for that kind of information, the kind of authority.
Well, I don't believe he needs to do that, quite frankly, because that's what the purpose of these recommendations were, was to send it over there for him to consider these recommendations as he decides what it is he would like to implement within the confines of our buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as it is within his authority, why do we need to say anything about it then?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, there has been, I think, some dissatisfaction with regard to perhaps not everyone participating fully, and this was an attempt to ensure everybody did participate fully in making recommendations that would go forward to the county administrator, Brian.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make it clear that I am addressing you in all this, and I understand what Mr. McCallum is saying in his little asides here to me, but I don't think it really matters. At the end of the day, if the administrator has that authority, then anything we're that we would say in this list of recommendations is purely fluff and has no real value. If we as a body want to require masks, then we should step up and say that's what we want. Instead of this, wishy-washy kind of sentiment that, we're already proving his authority. I'm not really sure. But my motion stands, sir. I think that we need to remove these, and quite frankly, I'll vote against it unless those words are removed.
Okay. Is there any other, Mr. Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments. As I look at this list, first of all, I thank the committee for their work. But there's nothing on this list that the county administrator doesn't have the unilateral authority to do. Nothing at all. And so whether we pass this or whether we do not pass this, the county administrator can do or not do any of those items on that list. So I'm not sure why it's important that we do this. As far as your Mr. Flelling's motion is concerned, that's fine with me, because if we take it off, he can still consider it. If we leave it on, he can still consider it. So I'm not exactly sure what this accomplishes, other than I understand the committee this is the committee's work, and I appreciate that. But where we are now is, do we pass this or do we not, when the county administrator has the absolute authority to do any of these things or not? Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have one.
Make it quick. A whole bunch of things to do. Go ahead.
If what Mr. Somerville has said is true, then what's the point of the group? There's no point in any of this. If he had the ability to do this the entire time, which I don't know if that's true or not, then what is the point of the entire ad hoc group? It's completely irrelevant. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying, if that is true what he's saying, I don't even understand the point of these recommendations or this ad hoc group for meeting this entire time if he had the ability to do all these recommendations the entire time.
We can make recommendations to him. He can consider whether those recommendations are going to be implemented as we request.
Well, my second still stands.
That's fine.
To remove it.
Okay. Everybody understands what the motion is on the floor?
Like Mr. Dawson has a...
Yeah, Mr. Dawson.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. First of all, I want to thank the committee for the hard work that you put into arriving at these recommendations. In the midst of this pandemic, council must, we don't have a choice. Council must take measures to protect our employees and the public while in our county buildings. And so I'm going to vote against the amendment that Brian has on the floor. I think the recommendation that came from the original recommendation that came from the committee suffices, and I think that's what we should move forward with.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote? All right, everybody understands the motion and second that are on the floor?
Can you clarify?
The motion and second on the floor is to remove the consideration of use of masks by employees and visitors. Okay. The motion was made by Mr. Flewelling, so you will vote first.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham, you were second?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
No.
Mr. Glover?
No.
Ms. Howard?
No.
Mr. Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
Mr. McKellen?
No.
Mr. Rodman?
No.
Mr. Somerville?
No.
The chair votes no. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 noes and 3 yeses. The motion is defeated. We're back to the original recommendations.
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
The county council is clearly not interested in compromise or reaching any kind of a conciliation or any kind of effort to mitigate the strenuous nature of all these recommendations should they be implemented. And so I want to make it clear that I'm voting against it because there doesn't seem to be any effort to work together, especially considering that all of these requirements, all of these recommendations are within the purview of the administrator without any effort of county council. All these things have already been either given to the administrator to do by operation of our ordinances or by operation of state law. And so I think this is redundant, quite frankly, ridiculous to be doing this kind of thing. You're only looking for some kind of, I don't know, publicity, or I'm not sure what it is, but quite frankly, it sickens me. I appreciate it. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Yep, my final comment, I promise.
Go ahead.
Just so we're all clear, what this will entail then, because obviously it's not going to be removed. I would assume based by the signs outside this building already that the mask is going to already be put into place. That is an assumption. I could be wrong. This means our rec centers, this means our libraries, that means any county building, this will be required. It's just not this office. Based on the emails I've been getting, it sounds like some of them have already been told that.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Absolutely. So I just want that to be clear that it is not only for staff, it is for anybody entering those buildings.
That's exactly right.
Including our pools and our rec centers.
That's exactly right.
Tomorrow, effective tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, any member of the public or any county employee that enters a county building or property will be expected to wear a mask. And those masks must adhere to CDC guidelines. And there will be other,
Guys, please, let him finish talking, please.
There will be there will be kiosks provided with other PPE, with gloves and sanitizer, anybody that wants to use those as well. So, yep, you're exactly right. And we have to get ready because we have to put up signage and things like that. We couldn't wait until the morning to put up signage, so those signs when it started going out today, because we have a lot of properties that we have to cover. And me being the planner that I am, we've started planning for that to take effect in the morning. There will also be an email sent out with a video from me to every employee that will explain as kindly and as gently as I can as to why I feel as the county administrator these steps are necessary. So I appreciate the work of the committee. The committee served to be an advisory function to give me a set of recommendations so that it's clear as to what those recommendations could be after being worked upon. And after reviewing those recommendations with my team of employees, we decided to implement many of the things on that list. Many of the things on the list we have been doing for nearly 2 years now, or 18 months. So yeah, it's very difficult situation. It's a very difficult situation for me. We've had 54 cases of COVID, people being tested. I think the number's like 32 cases since August here at the county workforce. We have had a couple of employees be hospitalized with COVID. We have one that's hospitalized right now that's very close to me. And I will tell you all this, that if there's any chance that what some people call a piece of cloth can assist me in preventing at least one of those people having to go through what I'm seeing this one employee go through, I will take that chance. It is my place to do it. It is my place to do it, and I will do it. I have to do it. I must do it. And I would appreciate your understanding, Councilmember Cunningham. I understand you don't agree with it. I get that. I appreciate that. You're entitled to your opinion, but I also ask you to put yourself in my particular situation. I have employees that are getting sick I have employees who are having to quarantine because their children in the school, because the school has refused to mask up, and they're getting close contact. And
Let him speak. Excuse me?
It's a difficult situation. The whole COVID situation, as I've explained to you all before, the whole COVID situation is kind of like walking down a trail at night without a flashlight. You think you know where you're going, you think you might be doing the right thing, but you might be off the trail one side or the other. You might walk into a tree limb, you might trip on a root. And if that's the case, and I find out that those things are not correct or appropriate, then I will adjust accordingly. I will modify the decision, and I will correct the course to do what I think is appropriate to protect the employees and the workforce of this county. So,
Is there an end date?
You need to resign.
any other questions for that?
You need to resign. That's what you need to do.
Is there any other questions from council?
No, there is none.
Okay, thank you.
Joe.
Thank you.
Tierney.
Okay. We will now vote.
We need vaccines.
Mr.
Guys,
McKellen,
please.
you were the maker of the motion. You get to vote first.
Yes.
Mr. Glover, you were second.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
No.
Mr. Dawson,
Yes.
Mr. Flewelling,
No.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. Rodman,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as I've said before, this is really just a suggestion. I believe the county administrator, within his purview, can do what he wants to. If we don't like what he's doing, we can slap his hand, but there's no reason not to vote for this, so I will vote in favor of it.
Mr. Somerville,
Yes.
chair says yes. The motion is 7 yes and 3 no. The motion carries. Item number 13 is a consideration of an authorization to allow the county administrator to sign a CDBG grant certification and enter into an IGA, which is an intergovernmental agreement, with the town of Ridgeland for a CDBG grant. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flewelling makes the motion.
I'd like to second the motion.
Ms. Howard makes the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item number 14 is a resolution recognizing the policy supporting fair housing for all, not only during Fair Housing Month, but throughout the year.
I'd like to make the motion. Mr.
Ms. Howard makes the motion. May I have the second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Dawson makes the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. Item number 15 is the first reading of a text amendment to Beaufort County Court of Ordinances, Chapter 42, Article 2, Division 3, Section 42-81 to update boundaries for the Sheldon Fire District. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second, sir.
Mr. Dawson makes the motion and Mr. Flewelling makes the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. Item number 16 is the first reading of an ordinance regarding a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 3.1.60, the Consolidated Use Table, and Section 4.1.190, Recreation Facility Campgrounds, to revise the campground standards. May
So
I have
moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll
Mr.
second.
Flewelling makes the motion, Ms. Howard makes the second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item number 17 is a public hearing concerning the applications to be submitted to the South Carolina Department of Commerce. Since this is a public hearing, is there anybody in the public who wishes to make a comment about this item? I see none. Is there? Okay. The public hearing portion is closed. So I would ask for a motion to have these submitted to the Department of Commerce. May I have such a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Flewelling.
I'll second.
Yeah, Mr.
Mr. Dawson makes the second, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. Next item, and Mr. Somerville, you are going to make this motion. A public hearing and second reading of an ordinance for a text amendment to section 3.490 of the Community Development Code to add a coastal resilience overlay district to require real estate disclosure when property is transferred in Zone X. May I have such a...
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman. I'd
Somerville
like
makes
to
the
make a
motion.
motion to move that forward for second reading for purposes of discussion.
Yes. Motion is made.
I'll
Ms.
second.
Howard makes the second. Okay. Mr. Somerville, go ahead.
I appreciate having the floor, Mr. Chairman. I have spent a great deal of time during the last week, and particularly this past weekend, reviewing this ordinance. And beyond reviewing it, I've taken the ordinance as it's written, and I've tried to follow through and see if as John Q. Public, if I could actually do what the ordinance is asking me to do. And the purpose of the ordinance, which is stated in the ordinance, is that to assist individuals making decisions that involve investments that will last at least 30 years. Part of the ordinance includes rentals and leases, and I don't think it's reasonable to assume that somebody's going to rent a house for 30 years or lease a house for 30 years, and in many cases even buy a house for 30 years. But nevertheless, the purpose of this ordinance, as I see it, is to inform the public. I think everybody who's been supportive of this ordinance as it moved along, including me, has been to inform the public that there is a 500-year flood zone out there, and in some cases, flood insurance is available. Not all cases, because you obviously can't get flood insurance on raw land, and if you do have a building, that building has to be underwritten, and some buildings will not be approved for underwriting. Nevertheless, so what I think we should do is, and what I'm going to make a motion is to send this back to the Natural Resources Committee to reconsider this and start from scratch. And from scratch, I mean to create an educational program, an informational program, so people will understand that this 500-year flood zone exists and where it might be. Right now, the only two maps that are available to help you figure out if you're in that 500-year flood zone are the GIS map, which is inaccurate in many instances, and there's a disclaimer on it which says that. And if you follow the ordinance as it's currently written, it sends you to what's called an FIRM, which is a FEMA map. And that FEMA map also has a disclaimer on it, which says you can't depend on this to determine what zone you're in. So there are a whole lot of reasons why, even though this ordinance is well-intentioned, it's not reasonable to ask people to comply with this ordinance. So I think, and I hope when it goes, if my motion passes, it goes back to the Natural Resources Committee, I hope we start with a good educational program, and I believe that a lot of people will support us in this, even financially, to get to communicate with our citizens on exactly what we're trying to communicate to them, and then we can take it from there. But right now, I think this is premature. I think we're getting the cart in front of the horse, even though I supported it at committee and I supported it at first reading. After I've done the due diligence that I've done in the last week, I have to say that I just don't think, as a practical matter, it's reasonable to ask our citizens to do that. So I'd like to make a motion that we send this back to the Natural Resources Committee for review and revision.
I'll second the motion, sir.
I had already seconded the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. So Mr. Somerville made that motion. Ms. Howard made the second. Is there any discussion? Does everybody understand the motion that's on the floor? Seeing no, Mr. Rodman.
Yeah, a couple points as you're reconsidering this. I don't know that it rises to the level of an ordinance with the way it's being described, but it's not clear to me who is harmed if we don't do this and who is helped if we do this that would not have otherwise been helped. And I am a bit concerned, if I read the emails back and forth, that this is something that we're doing in the unincorporated, but the municipalities are not doing the same thing, and we usually try to have a degree of uniformity. So I've yet to hear a compelling reason as to why we should do this, but I'm happy to send it back to committee.
Okay, any further discussion? Do I need a roll call vote, or can this be done without objection? I see no objections. Therefore, this is approved to move the matter to the Natural Resources Committee. Item number 19, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to amend the Beaufort County Code of Ordinance for fiscal year 21-22 Beaufort County budget to provide for the carryover of certain expenditures from the fiscal year 2021 in the amount of $4,974,270.44. May I have such a motion, please? Mr. Rodman makes the motion. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cunningham makes the second. Is there any discussion before I go to the public? Since this is a public hearing about this, is there any member of the public who wishes to comment regarding this? Anybody online? Okay. The public portion is closed. This will be done without objection.
Just a comment if I could.
Mr. Rodman.
Yeah, there were two open items that I brought up in the past that I think would be helpful, Mark, if finance could take those up, and it may influence what we want to do before we get to third reading. One is, I think many of us believe that the mill value will be significantly greater than what we had when we went through the budgeting process. And I think it would be useful to understand that in case there are some other places where we have pressing needs that we might actually want to include in this amendment as opposed to coming back. Secondly, we had the solicitor's budget when we were going through the budget, and it was one of those ones that was said, well, let's come back and do it at the first of the year. And as I remembered, and I confirmed this with the solicitor, his intention is to hire, I believe it's 3 people, and he would go through that hiring process in the fall, and obviously if he finds one that he wants, he would do it, as quickly as he could. So it would seem to me, Mark, that it would be useful for us to have that piece come back through your committee and perhaps be included, if the committee says so, in this ordinance while we're at it.
Okay, any further discussion? This will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item number 20 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance authorizing the redirection and expenditure of a portion of the proceeds of the Beaufort County General Obligation Bond Series 2020 and other matters related thereto. May I have a motion for approval?
Make the motion.
Mr. Lawson made the motion. May I have a second? Mr. Rodman makes a second. Is there any discussion? There is no discussion. This will be approved without objection, and I see no objection. Yeah, I'm sorry. And is there anybody in the public who wishes to make comments about this one? Thank you for that. No comments? Okay, this will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item 21 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 5.5.30.B1, General Parking Standards, Off-Site Premises, to provide additional flexibility. May I have such a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard makes the motion. A second, please.
York.
Mr. Glover, I'm going to give you the second on that. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to comment about this one? Seeing no public comments. Anybody online? See nobody online? Okay. This will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item 22 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance for a zoning map amendment. Rezoning request for 3.09 acres of property identified as 24 Zim Lane from S1 Industrial to C3 Neighborhood Mixed Use District.
I'll make that motion. I think it is in Ms. Councilman Dawson's district.
Yeah, Mr. Dawson makes the second. Is there any discussion before I go to the public? Seeing none? Is there any public comment about this one? I see nothing from the public. There's nobody online. Any further discussion from council? Seeing none, this will be approved without objection. Item 23 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance authorizing the abandonment of an easement in covering property identified as TMS R100-016 0000199 4 zeros. Motion and second, please. Mr. Rodman, I'm sorry, who spoke up?
Mr. McGowan.
Mr. McKellen, you made the motion. Second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lawson, you made the second. Any comments? Public hearing. Anybody from the public wish to make a comment? Seeing none, this will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Item 24, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance of a text amendment to Article 5, adding a new division 5.13 titled Fill Standards to limit the amount of fill on low-lying areas.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Howard makes the motion. Mr. Glover makes the second.
Yes.
Public hearing. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment? Come forward, sir. Please state your name.
Mr. Chairman, Council, I am Chuck Newton. I'm chairman of the Sea Island Corridor Coalition. This proposal for a fill ordinance came out of the Ladies Island Plan and was strongly supported by the steering committee. And I think both the council here and the city council, Beaufort, in adopting the Ladies Island Plan. One of the things that's key here, there are several issues related to this, but I think the most important, and sometimes I have not seen it written, one of the goals here is to prevent the ability to make previously undevelopable land developable. As we get to the point where land resources are in the county are stretched way down the line, there'll be increasing interest in trying to find ways to develop new opportunities for building. This fill ordinance is intended to slow that process, so I encourage your positive vote on this issue. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I got one question, and this might come from staff, but as I read the ordinance, is there any place, or does this just come from our normal ordinances that we have or planning in place that allows for an exception to be made? And if that is that something who would that go before? For fill, obviously we're talking about the fill here, so is there any way, if someone needed an exception or wanted an exception for this, what?
Yeah, they would go to it would be a development issue, and they would be eligible to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals and prove that they have a hardship for whatever reason. If there's a natural topographic reason as to why they would need to fill in a portion of land to be over that amount, then that would be something that the Zoning Board of Appeals could hear and decide if there's an adequate hardship.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? This will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Therefore, item 24 is approved. Next item, text amendment to the Beaufort County Comprehensive Plan to amend Chapter 12, Priority Investment, to include an environmental education center at the Binden Plantation in the 10-year capital improvements plan. Motion and second, please.
We need a presentation on this one.
Okay, but I need a motion and second to put it on the floor.
I'll make the motion, sir.
Mr. Flewelling makes the motion. May I have a second, please?
What's his motion?
The motion is what's there.
To bring this forward for a vote.
Okay.
Yep. Mr. Radman, you're going to make the second? Okay. Mr. Flewelling, you made the motion. You get to comment first.
I think we are going to have a presentation.
Do we have a presentation?
I understand Mr. Merchant is going to discuss it. I don't know if he's online or in the
He's online.
Go ahead, Mr. Merchant.
Okay, thank you. So this is a citizen-initiated amendment to the existing Beaufort County Comprehensive Plan, and it is requesting to amend Chapter 12, the Priority Investment Chapter, to include the purchase of property over at Bindon Plantation and the establishment of an environmental education center. Anthony Crisatello is the applicant. And I can provide some background to how this project came about. This was originally annexed by the town of Yemassee in 2007. And in 2012, the county, through its Rural and Critical Lands Preservation Program, purchased conservation easement on the entire Bindon Plantation. That's about 1,300 acres. And at that time, the conservation easement has language that said that one possible use for that property would be to, if the county should decide to purchase, be simple, rather than simply a conservation easement, could be an environmental education center. And that is the, so the county originally had an opportunity to purchase that. They had an application to NOAA through the KELP program, but it is my understanding that that money was returned because there were some issues with the appraisal. So that purchase was never made. So currently, the county does not own any land at Bindon Plantation. As far as staff recommendation, so since that time, that's around 2013, no additional action has been taken on that property. Since that time, the county has really ramped up its rural and critical, or its passive parks program, and now has a passive parks plan, prioritize list of projects. And in staff's review of the appropriateness of this request, we simply, the first thing to consider is that the county simply does not own the property. So we do not have control over the land that we are calling for an environmental education center. Second issue is that currently it is not a prioritized project, even if we did have the land. The cost of purchasing the property and developing it is not something that we currently have budgeted in our passive parks program. So, obviously, if council decides that is a priority, that's council's privilege to make. But as staff, we point out that we have taken a lot of steps in the passive parks program. This project, is not on that list. And I would say that the main reason is we do not own the land. It's simply a conservation easement. So the other important issue I wanted to bring up is that the county is, our planning commission has approved our new comprehensive plan. So that, we're hoping will go into effect by the end of the year. What this amendment is to our existing comprehensive plan. So that's something to keep in mind also, in considering this amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I might ask a couple questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Merchant. I guess the first thing is, again, to clarify, under the conservation easement that we have no ability to direct use of any part of that property for the use as an education center or education opportunity. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It would only be if we actually own the land.
Right. And we also have no development agreement regarding Bindon Plantation. The only development agreement is between the owner of the property and Yemassee, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's in the town of Yemassee.
Thanks. And the last thing is the grant that you referenced that we were potentially going to try to use to purchase some of the property. You say it was returned. Might I have the date that was returned or any information you might have? If you don't have it right now, you can email it to me. I certainly understand, but I would need the date that it's returned, that we denied our use of it or whatever. Yeah?
Yes, sir, we can provide that.
I guess released. Is that the way it would be phrased? I really don't know enough about that kind of.
Yeah, and we have some. It's been a while, and it's what we're not certain is whether we actually were awarded a grant or we were on the short list, and they were simply in their due diligence requesting certain items from us, and it timed out and the budget got funded.
I guess to clarify, my concern would be perhaps if there was a bunch of money that was given to Beaufort County and it's sitting in our coffer somewhere unaccounted for. I want to make sure that any money that we have, we've fulfilled any obligations created by receiving that money.
Yeah, it's my understanding that money was never transferred to the county.
Okay, I would appreciate some clarification on it. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Well, Rob, if I might chime in. So according to your presentation, number one, we the county, we don't own the land that is being proposed by our former planning director, Mr. Tello. We don't own the land, correct?
That's correct.
And currently, we don't have any funds for the purpose of the educational center as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good. I had one more question. I think I know the answer to it. Those type of funds do not exist anymore, correct, Rob? The program has expired and we never received it, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, it's my understanding that program dried up shortly after, we had the opportunity to receive funding.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Everybody understands? Mr. Bradley?
Yeah, always kind of sensitive to things that Tony brings forward because he served us so ably over so many years. One's a question and a comment. If the owner of the property wanted to do it, given that there's a conservation easement, could it be done, or does the conservation easement preclude doing what's being suggested here?
I guess I would go to the language of conservation easements. Whether that was a permitted use within that, I'm not really prepared to speak on that.
Okay.
Yeah, the language basically says, Thomas, the highlighted section. Yes. It says, grantor shall retain the right to convey plantation A as identified in the land conservation plan to the appropriate governmental entity or state agency for the express purpose of constructing an environmental education center. The grantor shall retain one additional subdivision in the event that the entirety of plantation A cannot be acquired.
So it could be done.
It could be done by an entity. Couple of things, if you put this in Priority Investment Act, you're actually got to dedicate funding to do it according to state laws. So we have no funding source.
Yeah, given that we're at the end of the current comprehensive plan and a new one coming up, I certainly understand the logic of not trying to amend one that's in the process of expiring. I guess the question in my mind is this a good idea? And if it is, how do we plug it in over the next 10 years? I'm not looking for an answer today, but
I can give you an answer today if you want one.
Sure.
I don't think it is a good idea.
Okay.
These types of things are things that are constantly having to have money invested in them. So it'll be a constant flow of county funding into the system. They don't typically ever generate enough revenue to even come anywhere close to breaking even. The second concern I have is whether or not even our comprehensive plan or the new one will actually even still apply to this property, given the fact that it's now in the town of Yemassee. Typically, you do not see, Yemassee has their own comprehensive plans. We can make some general references to items in a comp plan about municipalities, but you generally don't have specific details to that level as to pull something like this off. So amending the comp plan to add this to the Priority Investment Act is something I think is not appropriate.
It's problematic. Okay. Thank you, sir. Good answer.
Mr. Chairman, what kind of motion do you need from from us at this time? Or have we covered the subject?
Yes, so the text amendment as it's reading there, if you're voting yes, you're voting to include this. If you vote no, we're not going to include that.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Dawson?
Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion that we not that we do not include the environmental education. That we do not amend the comprehensive plan to acquire or develop the educational center at the Bender Plantation.
Okay, but all you have to do is vote no, and it does the same thing. You don't need a special motion. Just voting no will not have it included.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, so because of the nature of this, yes vote is to include it, a no vote is to not include it. And therefore, I will call the roll.
Wait, one more quick question to clarify, Mr. Chairman. Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
Thanks. From the legal department, I think. Does this satisfy our requirement to address the concerns of a citizen through the appeal process that Mr. Costello has done? Are we now satisfying by this vote, one way or the other, our requirements?
Yes, the answer is yes from legal.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Flewelling, you made the motion. You will go first.
I vote no.
Mr. Radman, you were second.
No.
Mr. Cunningham.
No.
Mr. Dawson.
No.
Mr. Glover.
No.
Ms. Howard.
No.
Mr. Lawson.
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. McKellen.
No.
Mr. Somerville.
No.
Chair votes no. That is unanimous. 10 noes and no yeses.
Mr. Chairman, a motion to extend beyond the 8 o'clock hour, as we may have had citizens that waited around for the citizens' comment.
Okay, we need a second.
I'll second, sir.
Okay, motion and second to extend. I see no objections, so we will extend. We're at the citizens' comment. There were 3 people that were on the list that did not get a chance to make their comments known. The first one was Stephen Schultz. Is he here?
Yes.
Come forward, please. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Stephen Schultz. I would like to address the comment made by the chair regarding the COVID ad hoc committee and the legality of that committee. I'd like to briefly read a portion of the governor's executive order number 2021-23. For the foregoing reasons, to the extent any county, municipality, or political subdivision of the state continues to impose any ordinance, order, or other measure that requires the general public within its jurisdiction to wear a face covering, and is relied upon in foreign part, there's some other verbiage there. And I'm skipping down. I have determined and do hereby declare that any such ordinance, order, or other measure is invalid and preempted in accordance with Section 10C of this order. So the only exception he grants is for the legislative or judicial branches of the state. And the only wiggle room he grants is that county, municipality, or political subdivisions of the state may promulgate guidelines, but not mandates. So it seems clear that the law says that you can't impose a mask mandate. I would now like to read Section South Carolina Code of Laws, Title 16, Crimes and Offenses, Chapter 17, Offenses Against Public Policy, Section 16-17-410, Conspiracy. The common law crime known as conspiracy is defined as a combination between 2 or more persons for the purpose of accomplishing an unlawful object or lawful object by unlawful means. A person who commits the crime of conspiracy is guilty of a felony and upon conviction must be fined $5,000 or imprisoned up to 5 years. So can someone explain why talking about why getting together and discussing a mask mandate, which is illegal, does not constitute conspiracy and is not a felony. Thank you.
Debbie Barton.
Good evening. I am here to show my support for Logan, who supports freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of choice, all part of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And he supports the civil liberties of his constituents. What is wrong with that? He's a good man. Secondly, I just want to make a statement about when the last time any of you went into Walmart, Walgreens, Costco, and looked at one of these boxes that are all stacked up in the stores. They all have a warning label on them. They all say, this mask does not eliminate risk of contracting any disease or infection. It's not rocket science. And you have the scientists to back it up. And you wonder why the public is so angry. I also happen to know two people personally from where I'm from in the Northeast who were adamant, staunch mask wearers this past year and a half. They almost died, two separate people, two separate incidents these past 18 months. And you know what happened to them? They were in severe car accidents. There's a million things out there that are going to kill us. Car accidents, flooding in New Jersey that took 40 lives of people. You can fall off a ladder or trip in your own house and smash your head and die. There's a million things. Cancer, heart disease, there's a million other things that are going to get you before this. And these masks are not don't do a darn thing. And especially when I watch all these council people up and down with the masks. It's lunacy. I just want to state one other thing. I took my 85-year-old dad to a doctor's appointment, important doctor's appointment this morning. We were in a big medical center in Bluffton. The doctors, the nurses, they have them all under the noses. They know the lunacy of it.
Sandon Bentley.
I wonder why the public is so angry with you.
Sandon Bentley.
What was that?
Sandon Bentley. Okay. Valley Bilbeck.
Hello. I'm sure some of you, like Eric, are concerned about safety. I want to tell you that prior to COVID, there were many, many studies, at least 40, that showed that masks could never work to stop viruses. This is why you didn't see police officers wearing them and school administrators. In fact, they were shown in these studies to make the disease spread more, to make viruses spread. I'm happy to share with all of you those studies. I'm not able to email links to you, but if you're interested, I'm happy to share those with you. So if you're concerned about safety and your health, please know that all of these studies said that they won't help. I also want to say what is very unethical about the recommendations passed is that it says, the last item, that there would be bonuses for employees who received the vaccine. That's very unfair treatment for those who have a variety of reasons for not being able to take the vaccine. Think about that. What if somebody's pregnant? What if somebody has a health condition? So now you're discriminating and you're not giving them a financial bonus because of something that they can't help? Second of all, I want to let you know that I know of 3 people who have had a horrible reaction to that vaccine. One woman my age had to have her leg amputated.
Gentlemen, pay attention.
Listening to her.
One lady. Okay, you're taking up my time. One moment, please.
I can listen
Okay,
to her.
I get an extra 10, at least 15 seconds for that. Her leg was amputated, my age. Another ended up in a hospital. Another died. These vaccines are not without risks. Do you want to take on that kind of liability with your precious county employees? I also want to say, don't let the CDC be your sole guide. They have been corrupted by a handful of pharmaceutical companies. If you look at the past of CDC, they have an issue with not being trustworthy. Do not forget the Tuskegee experiment. If you don't know what that is, that went on for 40 years and involved almost 400 African-American men who were told they would receive free health care if they were part of an experiment. What they didn't tell them is that they had syphilis and they let it go untreated, even though there was a treatment. This is not an organization to be trusted blindly. You also need to provide us with some safety mechanisms. If you really care about the public having a healthy outcome from COVID, then help us to get treatments at home, like ivermectin, so that people don't have to go to Tractor Supply to get it for their horse warmer. Give us access to hydroxychloroquine. And also, let us maybe consider the monoclonal antibodies, like the governor in Florida is doing. There's so many things we could do to treat people for good outcomes versus what is happening right now. And this is a corporate takeover. It's a fascist takeover of free societies. History will judge each of you. Will you have sided with the corporate fascist who tried to take away democracy from the world? Or will you be known for the people who stood by science and integrity? Yeah.
Eric Lawson.
Well, thank you all. I'm Eric Lawson. I studied viral vectors and viral diseases and submitted products to the FDA, genetic products to the FDA, which were approved.
Yeah.
It seems, I'll take another 10 seconds. It seems that the county council here, like the Hilton Head Town Council and the school board earlier last month, has been panicked by the Delta variant. It's in the first sentence of all of your decrees here. But with pandemics, spikes will go up and spikes will go down. The Delta variant first appeared in India along the Chinese border, and the spike went up. And even though India has one of the poorest hospitalization programs, the spike then went down. They have the lowest vaccinated population. The spike went down. England was next. The Delta variant spike went up, and then England did no additional mask mandates. They did no additional lockdowns, and the spike went down. Next was a study was done by the CDC, Center for Disease Control in Barnstable, Massachusetts this summer. The summertime had a spike going up in Barnstable, and then the spike later went down in Barnstable. The variant it was a Delta variant and also the Alpha variant as well. And it turned out that of the highly vaccinated population of Barnstable, which has a high percentage of vaccinated people, it turned out that 3/4 of the newly contracted diseases were of vaccinated people. So 75% of the new cases were previously vaccinated persons. So that is telling you how the vaccine is really working. And yet the spike is going down now. It has to do with what pandemics do. The wave has passed over Barnstable and is now moving somewhere else. So these totalitarian mandates are not effective. Mandating a vaccine is not effective. Mandating the masks is not really effective. You can do it if you want. You have freedom of choice in this country, but for a government to tell an employee or any citizen that they must take a mask mandate, they must take a vaccine, this is Hitlerian. To punish those who do not, that's borrowing from the Nazi policies of the Nazi era. So also the N95 mask, which you mentioned, filters 95% of dust. Dust particles are this big and viral particles are this big. So basically that has no value against viral particles. And in fact, the FDA says, as Valerie said, and also as Debbie showed on her document, the FDA requires all of these masks to say this does not work against viral diseases, period. That's the FDA law. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our business for county council.
I make one statement, you're going to want me to make the statement. As we go out today, we know the policies that are going to be put into place, whether it makes me happy or not. Please remember the employees that have to enforce these do have to follow the rules that they have been submitted. Please do not take that out on them. Do not make their lives difficult. I know how hard these county employees work day in and day out. Anybody online that hears that, please, they're going to have to police this, and don't make their jobs more difficult than it has to be. That's just the situation we're in right now. I'm just as upset, but remember that it's not their fault. So please be safe, take care of your households, and make decisions you need to make. Thank you. No, we are still here.
Yes.
I will still be here.
Buildings are going to be closed, right? So buildings.
No.
Buildings will not be closed.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
We finished?
Yes, the meeting is adjourned.
You're going to deny medical.
Mr. Glover wants to speak.
Chairman, could I do something real quick?
Jim, are we going to have more comments from the public?
The second comment section is over.
It was not announced that it's over. I'd like to speak. Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, speak.
Thank you.
But the meeting is over. But you can speak to me. I'll listen to you.
Chairman, listen. This is like going to a restaurant and ordering a meal and the meal doesn't come. I asked for an opportunity to meet before the Natural Resources Committee. It didn't happen. Okay? This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. The idea that you can have an environmental education center at Benden Plantation was established in the conservation easement. Okay? If you allow me to have a dialogue with you, which I paid for, I would be able to get to you information, like for example, that if you're going to eradicate the development of the the conservation easement, you have to go to a court of competent jurisdiction. You can't just do it like you did just now. It's illegal.
Let me ask you a question. Do you own the property?
Mr. Chairman, the reason why the conservation easement was adopted in the first...
Please answer that question. Do you own this property?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes. You know why? Because I'm a taxpayer and I paid for the Rural and Critical Lands Program, the $2.5 million. I have skin in the game. You might consider it to be dandruff, but I consider it to be skinned. Okay? So I'm
not aware that you are the owner of this property.
$2.5 million was spent out of the taxpayers' money for the Rural and Critical Lands Program, and I paid for the Rural and Critical Lands Program through my taxes. I have standing here.
The action was taken.
I have standing.
Well, I'm sorry. You asked for action to be taken. Action was taken.
Please give me a chance to speak to you. That's what I paid for. I want my money back if you're not going to allow me to speak to you. This is wrong.
Chairman, Mr. Glover will try to speak.
Mr. Glover, what did you have to say?
The meeting is closed. closed, so I wanted to go on record saying, so the meeting is closed, and I reserve my comments for the next meeting. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what did you?
Still on here. We're still on the air.
We're still on the air.
I just present the fact that someone would use the trustee experiment to compare that with this opportunity here. And I understand what happened with Tuskegee. I understand what happened with USC and Columbia, and there is no comparison at this point. And I just wanted to go on record saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening, all.